I was going to the fight, doing my thing, didn't really have very much oomph to it, but it was the middle of the third round. I get hit with this glancing punch, and I had broken my nose a few times, but she hit me right in the right spot that it re-broke it, and I just start gushing blood everywhere. And it was in that moment with the blood rushing out of me that I was like, what are you doing? You love being in here. Like, this is your place. This is what you love to do. Yeah. I don't recommend breaking your nose to have that aha moment, but I like to learn the hard way, unfortunately. But it was in that moment where, and it's funny because there's actually a photo of it, of that exact moment, because you see my eyes get really big and you can see how much I love doing this. And I think I smiled at that point.
But your bloody nose.
With my blood literally just covering me all over the place. Some real
psychopath shit.
Oh, it's my favorite photo, but I'm like, I look scary. That's a scary bitch right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Pranzata Podcast. This is episode number 83 on this podcast. We are getting so close to episode 100. I have a special guest today. This is DeAnna Bennett. She is a mixed martial artist from Philadelphia. I don't normally get fighters on this channel, so I have a lot of interesting questions for her and how that parallels to the musician lifestyle. I see a lot of parallels there. She competes in Flyweight division in Bellator. Before we get into it, if you are new to this podcast and you enjoy what you hear throughout the podcast, please don't forget to hit subscribe. It is my mission to grow this channel this year, and it would help me out a lot if you guys could support. And don't forget to hit like and share. So let's get right into it. So a lot of my listeners are musicians and comedians. So for the new people who don't know too much about mixed martial arts, can you explain to them what that means? Flyweight division in Bellator. Because for somebody who doesn't know about fighting, that's like, what the hell is that? It sounds like a dinosaur. Like,
I get that. Well, we're basically human cockfighters in a cage. Yeah. I'm just kidding. That's a terrible explanation of it. But I like to do that to the people, and usually older people. They're like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "I'm a human cockfighter." And they're just like, "I don't know how to." That's great. It's like, just kidding. I fight in a cage. That actually doesn't help either. They also look at me like, what's happening there? So the flyweight division is the 125-pound division for Bellator, which is the second biggest promotion for mixed martial arts in the world. There's UFC and then and Bellator.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so basically just cage fighting, the little gloves, 4-ounce gloves. You can boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, the whole
So when people say
shebang.
mixed martial arts, that implies a lot of different fighting styles.
Yes.
That's where the mix comes from.
Exactly. It's not just boxing. It's not just jiu-jitsu. It's the combination of a little bit of everything there.
And then what you do is also combines all these different techniques and everything like that.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of training. That's like a lot of knowledge. That you have to, wow.
That's why I'm in the gym 6 hours a day, because you have to do every single discipline so you're ready no matter where the fight goes, basically. So well, I just make it go where I want to, which means I sit on them. So that's my thing. So
yeah. All right, so one of the things that draws me, I'm pretty new to learning about MMA myself, I have to admit. How I got into it, a lot of my listeners know I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. They call me a Ho Rogan, you know.
I feel that.
I started listening to a lot of his podcasts, and I found that whenever I would listen to him interview fighters, I would find so many parallels between the musician lifestyle and the fighting lifestyle, in the sense that there's this intense focus on the goal and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious what your perspective is like here. So when you prepare, are you more the type of person who's like, everything in my life is devoted to fighting, or do you think it's better to be a well-rounded person and that actually helps your fighting better? What's your philosophy there?
It's a full-on lifestyle.
Gotcha.
A lot of people, I've seen some fighters try and do it, this is just something I do on the side, but this is my life. Yeah. Fighting is my life. It's everything. Every little thing that you do, every little thing I do is focused around fighting and what's going to make me a better athlete when I get into that cage.
Gotcha.
Whether it's my day-to-day, my old coach used to get so mad. He's like, you have to have a life outside. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm good.
So the reason I asked it is because there was this one woman, Valentina Shevchenko.
Oh, yeah.
I found her on Joe Rogan. I really liked her a lot. And she was really big on the I believe that I should be all these different things. So she's like into other things, like into learning foreign languages. And I'm like, I always have this internal struggle of like, I'm definitely first and foremost a musician, but I had just recently got into stand-up comedy. Nice. And sometimes I'm like, am I wasting my time? Like, should I just devote everything into being a musician so I can become as good as I could possibly be? So can you possibly imagine yourself taking on another hobby right now? Or would you be like, no, it's just going to take away from my
honestly
lifestyle?
It's so hard. Like I try. There's other things that I do outside of it. Like I've actually played hockey my whole life. And
really?
I've actually, it's my number one. I always make people upset because I'm like, my favorite sports, hockey's number one, fighting's number two, and they're like, you realize you do that for a living, right? And I was like, yeah, but still, in my heart, that's where it's at. But I put that on hold. Like the only time I ever get on the ice is like right after a fight. I'll go and do it once, or else I know I'll do it too much and it'll take away from my training, like my day-to-day life. Like everything I always plan around my training sessions.
Gotcha.
I plan around
so at some point in your life, even if there was the hockey and everything like that, you just somehow got to that point in your life where you're like, it's going to be all the fighting. Exactly.
Like every once in a while, like once a week, I always say that, like, okay, today I'm going to dress like a human. I'm going to put makeup on. I'm going to get out of the gym so I can just remind myself that I'm actually a human female and not just like a gym swamp demon at least once a week.
There is a reality to that. I have nothing to train for. I'm just like, I just like to look good. So I just go to the gym for like narcissistic reasons, I guess you could say. I don't know.
Health reasons.
Health reasons, I guess you could say. But there is a truth to that like it gets to a point where you're like, your outfits are all yoga pants. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, it looks like you got jeans on or something today.
I did. I put jeans on today just because of like, okay, I'm going to use this as my once a week to put on jeans and we're good.
No, it's funny. I actually wore the yoga pants today.
Well, balance in life. There you go. So today's not your day to do it. Maybe tomorrow. So there you go.
All right. So my next question for you, okay. So again, going back to the parallels with the musicians, one thing that I've noticed is similar about musicians and fighters is that they train for one event. So the interesting thing that I found out over time that I learned when I first started studying piano was that you only have that real-time event one time. So you have to actually practice performance. So what we would do is we would like set up fake performances because you can fight, you can practice fighting, but you can't necessarily practice the performance end of fighting where you're in an arena with a bunch of people like hooting and hollering at you. So is there something that fighters do to prepare for that moment as well, that they're like, oh shit, we have to actually practice the performance end as well? And how do they do that?
Yeah, because like every week you have like your sparring, which is your fight simulation. And as you get closer to the fight, you do kind of focused ones. Like my last fight, the night before I left for Hawaii, which is where my last fight was, I had my teammates came at midnight because of the time difference. That's about the time that I was going to end up fighting in Hawaii. So we went to the gym at midnight. We had a whole bunch of people around the cage and they were like cheering and they were like loud and coaching and that kind of stuff. And so we'll do things like that to kind of simulate it. Obviously it's not the same, but we'll kind of do that, and it's a lot of visualization.
Gotcha.
Good words. I got hit in the head a lot. I'm like, I gotta slow that down real fast. Do a lot of visualization. I'm gonna stop trying to say that word. Y'all know what I mean. Do a lot of focusing on the inside. So with that, and my old gym, we used to do where you would go through the whole process. Like we'd have you upstairs, you'd walk down into the cage, announce you go to the side, you go in the middle and touch gloves and go from there, just because you don't want, it's so hard for the people who have their first fight. Like it's hard to feel that. I've had 20 plus pro fights and I'm still, every single time I have a fight coming up, I'm always just like, what do I do? What's happening?
That's exactly what I mean. Like there's no matter how prepared you are, there's no way to practice real time that moment unless you do it. So it's funny you say that about the announcing and everything, is because I also teach piano lessons, to make my money for what I do. And I do the same exact thing with my piano students. So if I prepare them for a recital, I'll actually be like, during the lesson, I'll be like, okay, let's pretend there's people watching. Sometimes I'll even record it. Like, so they have that like feeling of like, oh my God, there's something kind of watching me.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, walk in the door, introduce yourself. And they're like shaking up like, this is awkward. I'm like, this is why we have to do this. Cause like, you're going to feel this awkward and
absolutely.
Do you get nervous like when you perform?
Every single time. Like you can ask my coaches and everything. It doesn't matter how many times I've done it. I get nervous before sparrings. So like even in the gym, what I do every single day, I still get nervous there. But when it's a fight, like I have a full on almost panic attack in the back. I'm like,
oh my God.
When I'm getting my hands wrapped, I'm like, I'm ready for this, right? Did I train enough for this? Do you think I'm ready? My old coach was just like, shut up. You're fine.
Slap you in the face.
You did good. It was the 2-hand poked in the forehead. And I was like, all right, well, that's a little condescending, but that's cool. But every single time I have my one wrestling coach, who I like to call my therapist, he has me do these heart respirations and try and focus and keep my breath down and try and relieve some of the stress. Like even I did a grappling match over the weekend and he was on the same card. And so like he had to take me into a back room because he's like, you need to calm down. So did a little breathing technique so that we can calm down and not get too excited, because that's my problem. I always get nervous. Well, I always get nervous, but I always get nervous that my nervousness is going to make me have an adrenaline jump. And I'm like, why am I getting nervous about being nervous? Like,
that's actually terrible. A real thing. I used to have panic attacks when I was younger. I still am like a very nervous person, but I somehow got over the panic attacks with Zoloft. But that helps. But I remember that being a thing. Like when I was researching into like panic attacks, it's like once you have panic attacks, then you start to have panic attacks about having panic attacks, and then you isolate yourself and you're like in your room panic that you're gonna panic. Like it's like this like never ending.
I'm so glad that it's not just okay. For a second I was like, is it me who's panicking about panicking?
No, it's like a real thing, and stuff like that happens to me all the time.
It's awful. Like but it's because you're passionate about it. Like anyone who has something that they've dedicated their life for and that they're passionate about, you have those nerves. Because anytime I have a fighter or anybody, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not nervous at all. I'm like, you don't love this enough. Like,
do those people who say that, do you notice it if they don't perform as well?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
I cornered this one guy up in New York and he's like, yeah, I'm not nervous at all. Like, I'm fine. I'm not nervous at all. And he goes out there and I've seen the way he trains in the room, but the second he got out there, he had an adrenaline dump and he got the ever-living crap beaten out of him. So
yeah,
sorry,
no, that's funny you say that, because I'm the same way as you. Before any comedy or music performance, I get so nervous, and like my mom calls me all the time. No offense, Mom, I love you, but she calls me all the time, and I'll be like, Mom, I'm on the way to a show thing. Like I'm really nervous. She's like, you do this every single week. Why are you nervous? Like I'm like, I don't know. I can't. Like it feels new all over again. So that's kind of comforting to know that. Hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
From what I've noticed, like I said, I've had so many fights and been doing this for years, and it's the one, like I've said, it's the ones that care about what they're doing and want to do well and are really passionate about it. The nerves tend to be worse. And it's always the ones that don't really care or just it is what it is, that they don't have those nerves. And so I always chalk it up to being a good thing. Like you want to have that because you're excited for it, basically.
It's probably like a fight or flight thing too.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Probably, because when you're having fight or flight, it's like putting you in that moment to like fight, literally fight or flight. So like in your case, I don't know.
For me, it's literally fight.
I don't know if you flight sometimes, but
no, I've had that thought. I'm like, excuse me, I'll be right back, and then just run.
All right, my next question for you. Okay, I don't know why I thought of this, but I was super curious about this. I just thought of it yesterday. When you're in the middle of a fight, you know, like we're talking about that real time, do you find that it's better for you to tune in more to your anger as fuel or to something zen? Like what works better for you? Or
honestly, for me, zen. My very first, again, with like panicking and everything and having that anxiety, I always need to calm myself down. Like you see a lot of fights and the guys will use their walkout song and it's like this crazy aggressive, like I could never do that. Like I need to be focused and be happy. My old coach, he would see my trainings. There's trainings where I was mad. There's trainings where I was unhappy. But he would notice that the trainings that I was the happiest in and calm, those were my best. Like, and you'll see it if you ever watch some of my fights. Ooh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. I like literally bumped my nose into it before. I was like, oh my God.
I know, like, I'm just going to Eskimo kisses over here. Like my trainings and everything where I'm happy, I smile a lot in my fights. And they're like, why are you smiling? Well, number one, I'm happy. And I'm like peaceful when I'm in here. Like, this is my place where I feel like I belong.
Right.
And if I am like mad or if I'm upset or anything like that, I find out I get worse. Like the worst trainings that I have, like even outside of the cage, like some of my worst fights and some of my worst training sessions are when I go in and I don't have a clear mind and something happens and I get upset about that. And then I try and fight them with that. And it just like, it snowballs and it gets terrible. But like my first walkout song, I used to literally walk out to a song called Relax.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by Peaches.
God.
I don't know if anyone knows that song.
What
Relax
is it?
by... the artist is Peaches.
I don't think I've heard that one,
I love
but
it. Highly recommend.
Check it out, people.
A lot of people haven't, which is also part of the reason I like it. And that's why like no one else uses this in the walkout song, but it's got a good bass to it. So you're able to walk out, but it's calm. And that's kind of where I need to be able to do my best, is just kind of enjoying the process and enjoying myself being out there and doing what I love to do.
Yeah, honestly. I always wondered about that, like, because fighting is a physical thing. So I'm wondering, like, I wonder if some people, they like kind of like think of something that pisses them off to like give them that fuel. I'm sure people have
a lot of people
method.
do. Yeah. Everyone has their process of what they need to do to get in there. Like I always call it the I smell poo face. Like when they like ruffle their nose like this, it always looks to me like they're like, I smell poo, and they're just angry, and I'm like, that's not my thing.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I have that face when I'm doing music.
Nice.
And it's called, in music they call the I smell poo face. In music they call it stank face.
Yep.
But in stank face, it's usually associated with bass players, and like when bass players are like really liking a song, they go like this.
Yes.
I fucking do it, and I'm so it's so embarrassing. Like, and it's always hit or miss, like with the crowd. Like some people are like, that's so, like, I could see your passion, and some people are like, you're so fucking weird.
like I'm
just like,
oh gosh,
like,
I love that. See,
it.
I wish my face was like focused, like when I'm like in the moment, and I didn't realize this until rather recently. When I'm in the moment, it's my tongue comes out. Like there's my old gym, he would take photos during practices, and he's like, can you just not stick your tongue out for like 1 second? And I'm like, my tongue didn't come out. Every photo he took, my tongue's like,
so when you're focusing your tongue,
my tongue
funny,
comes out.
Some people do that. When I notice when my boyfriend plays drums, he like does the exact same thing. It's just like a thing.
Every single time, and I'm sitting on top of somebody, punching them. I'm like,
yeah, I guess
like, to lick them.
I guess some people like they just have their thing. For me, it's like
Yep.
the musician stank face, and like
I like it.
it's embarrassing. Like I have to get used to it. But you seem like you own your tongue face.
Honestly, at this point, I'm like, this is who I am. I'm a little bit weird, and there's no changing it at this point. So you just kind of steer into it. So,
okay, my next question for you. Okay. Have you ever you said you've been doing this for 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had kind of like an aha moment where it was like, oh my God, I just unlocked. So I'll explain mine if that helps like you answer the question. So like, for example, when I first started studying music and studying piano, I realized that when I was young, a lot of what I wanted to do was like very egotistic. Like I wanted to be the fastest player. And a lot of my motivation was driven by ego. And then I had this kind of epiphany once where I was like, I ended up having wrist pains and stuff like that. Oh, wow. And I realized it was actually connected to my ego because I was holding so much tension to try to be the best and the fastest. My body was kind of like, no, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And then that was kind of my epiphany. I was like, holy shit. Like, not only is this fucking up my piano life, it's fucking up my whole life. Like, It was kind of, has anything like that ever happened to you in fighting where you kind of like developed something that kind of unlocked new territory for you, like where it was like, oh crap, I have to fix this, and it just kind of changed everything?
For me, it's the mental part of it, because I remember I had this one fight. It was in Vegas, and I was having so many personal issues going into the fight. It was a fight where I actually didn't end up having to cut weight. My boyfriend at the time was supposed to go with me to Vegas. I was living in Utah actually at the time, and we were supposed to go on Monday, and then my coach was going to go down at weigh-ins on Thursday. And so the day beforehand, he's like, I'm not going. And I was like, so he ended up, I was I spent all week alone in Vegas until weigh-ins. He actually ended up showing up, and fighting is what I love to do. And I was so mentally out of it for like the couple of months because he was like that the whole fight camp. I had a lot going on. I had my last fight before that was my first loss, and I was kind of like, everything was like snowballing and I was all over the place. Yeah. And then I remember walking out to the fight. I literally had the thought, and I was like, okay, it's 15 minutes at the most. Let's just go and get this over with, which now even thinking about that kills me. But I was going to the fight, doing my thing, didn't really have very much oomph to it, but it was the middle of the third round. I get hit with this glancing punch, and I had broken my nose a few times, but she hit me right in the right spot that it re-broke it, and I just start gushing blood everywhere. And it was in that moment with the blood rushing out of me that I was like, what are you doing? You love being in here. Like, this is your place. This is what you love to do. Yeah. I don't recommend breaking your nose to have that aha moment, but I like to learn the hard way, unfortunately. But it was in that moment where, and it's funny because there's actually a photo of it, of that exact moment, because you see my eyes get really big and you can see how much I love doing this. And I think I smiled at that point.
With your bloody nose.
With my blood literally just covering me all over the place.
Some real psychopath shit.
Oh, it's my favorite photo, but I'm like, I look scary. That's a scary bitch right there. Like, I'm not sure about that, but that's the moment.
No, you're right. Like, because like you said, it kind of captured that moment where you had that realization, like, holy shit, I love being here.
Absolutely. And like,
see that.
Why would I ever think that I just need to get through this? Like, I should be. And I tried to pick it up at that point. I ended up losing a split decision. I still felt like I won, but I get it. I felt like I didn't deserve to for how I was for the first part of that fight. Yeah. But it was from then on. It's just like, if you love it, don't
complain.
Don't complain. Yeah. Don't be like, oh, I hope this is over. And it was trying to, it's hard to kind of manage the stuff outside. Like, I still fall into these things, like stuff that happens outside the cage. It affects me a lot. I don't know. Maybe I've been told that I'm like an empath before because I feel too much.
I'm exactly the same way. I've been told that before too. Yep. It's like you take. I feel like as someone who's also been called an empath, like I don't know if I 100% believe it, but like it's sensitive. Like I guess that's like a more practical way to say it. Sensitive people. I'm someone who like sometimes I don't even know what my feelings are because I'm absorbing everybody else's.
Oh,
I'm like, which one of these feelings are mine? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly, because you're feeling everything from everyone, and you can call it sensitive, you can call it empath. I'm not one of those woo people, but like I feel that, and I can see that. I've known you for just a short bit of time, but I definitely feel that. And
I'm also someone who internalizes things too. So like, not only do I take on other people's emotions, but I'll blame myself, like, oh my God, they're feeling sad. It's because I'm a piece of shit. Like I'll like my mind will go to the darkest places.
Yeah. Mine does that too. I mean, the exact same way. And like you were saying with your wrists and everything, like I feel that it's my neck and my shoulders, and I'll get really bad shoulder cramps and I'll get really bad neck cramps when I'm bottling all these emotions up. And I used to get really bad tension headaches because the muscles of my neck would get so tight.
That's so funny you say that. I was literally just talking about this with my boyfriend yesterday. I was talking about how there's some people who say that, oh, all your physical pain and disease and all that is a manifestation of your emotional state. And then some people are like, that's a bunch of bullshit, it's medical. And I'm like, actually it's kind of both. Like, because when you think about it, it's all connected. So like, I don't really think it's necessarily hocus pocus to say that, oh my God, if you're upset about something, your neck could hurt. I'm like, it makes perfect sense. Like if you're upset about something and you're chronically in this state of stress, well then you're like, everything's working overtime. And then of course it's going to affect the way you feel. Like it's not that mystical, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, think about like ulcers. People get ulcers from stress. Like in the same thing, like I'll tense up my shoulders, I'll tense up my muscles, and I'll like anytime I'm really stressed, I always feel it in my shoulder, I feel it in my neck, and it's not like, it's not crazy things. Like people want to say like, oh, that's karma you're holding on to. I'm like, okay, that's crazy. I'm not sure about that. But your body
like trauma from your ancestors or something.
Like, so and so did this and it carried it down our bloodstream, and then I'm like, all right, let's not get too crazy over here.
I think I did read that there is some sort of like scientific like evidence that you can carry on like certain things from like your ancestors, but not necessarily like to the point where it's like in a past life like I think someone told me like when I was like 23 and my wrist had an injury and I was like desperate, I think I went to a psychic and she was like, in a past life you tried to steal bread and they cut your hands off, like
oh,
something.
I love that.
Like I don't necessarily believe in that necessarily, but I think there is like some evidence that like if your ancestors were like wild people, you might be a wild. Like I think that, like more that
I
type
can
of
see
stuff.
that.
You
See
know
that
what I mean?
that makes sense. The past life hand cutting off, which I'm gonna find a fun story for that. And just run with it. Be like, hey, listen, my ancestor in their past life, they were a witch and got burned at the stake. And so this is why I'm always hot. This is the thing.
You should go to the same psychic and see what they say about your shoulder.
I kind of really want to. I might actually need that information. I'm like, what could I have done in
my
past
life
that my shoulder hurts? So carrying something, who knows? But all right, I need that info.
Ooh, all right, so this next question.
Ooh.
How do you mentally recover from a loss of a fight? Because I just did a roast battle the other day and I had a serious, roast battling in comedy. I had a serious ego check because I had been lucky with my roast battles for some reason. And I thought I was like really good at them. I was like, oh my God, I've been winning all these roast battles. I was 2 days ago. I think it was the same day you did your grappling match, or maybe the day before. It was around that. But I got so brutally destroyed that I was like, oh my God, I don't think I was ever that good. I think I just never went against anybody good. I don't know if you've ever had that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
I was just like, I thought I was good at this. I just never competed against a pro. And like it totally like for a couple days I was like a mess. I'm like, should I quit? I'm a piece of shit. Like, how do you deal with loss?
Honestly, it's a hard one because I do a lot better with it now. Maybe I'm more experienced with losing, but I remember this is how I dealt with my very first loss. My very first loss was in a title fight back in like 2016, and I dealt with that by going to Costco and buying a party platter of cocktail shrimp. And then I sat in the Costco parking lot and had the thought, well, if I go home I have to share with my boyfriend at the time and my dog, but if I eat the entire thing in this parking lot, I don't have to share anything. So I literally like shame ate cocktail shrimp and I ate the entire party platter.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still just shrimp. Like I would have.
That was my justification too.
I think I would have like, if that was me, I would have been like pints of ice cream. So like shrimp, I think they're like low.
That was me trying to be good. Yeah. But not when I'm talking like Costco party platter though.
Like the big shrimp.
The big one. Like
so
the biggest one that you can get.
Yeah.
Like it's meant for like 10 people and I ate that in one sitting. And so I don't recommend dealing with loss that way.
With food.
Yeah, that was the worst way. I got home and he was just like, what's wrong with you? Where have you been? And I'm like, do I smell like shrimp? He's like, you do. And I was like, oh, that's really awkward. I wonder why. I'm going to go for a run now. But like, it's hard. You have to surround yourself with the right people because like, it's so cliche, but you realize who really are your people and who should be in your circle after you lose, after something doesn't go right. Because like, obviously when everything is going right and you're winning, like your circle tends to grow. People want to be a part of that. People want to be associated with you. Like they want to be, oh, like, oh yeah, so-and-so is my friend. Oh, so-and-so, I train with them. But after you lose, the people that stick with you and the people that are there for you, it's a lot smaller number. Like the number of text messages you get after a win is crazy. The number of text messages you get after a loss, like those are your people, the people who check up on you. And it's just surrounding yourself with the right people. And then for me, also getting back on my routine and getting back to training. Like one loss isn't going to stop me. Like it's so hard to think like, of course, something bad happens. Like, maybe you don't have a good performance there. Maybe I don't have a good performance in the cage. It's easy to think of like, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. Which I've had that thought with fighting before. I've had family members, I've had friends tell me like, oh, well, maybe you should give this up now. And I'm like, no, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I love. And so getting back to training and fixing the mistakes that maybe I've made that led to that loss is how you work for it. You don't reevaluate yourself and, okay, what do I need to do so that doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
Like it's so fun. Not fun. It's very humbling to see the people that are around you, and like the people that care will be like, okay, well, we together need to work on this for the next one. We have to do this.
Well, that's so funny. I wonder why some people just fall off the map and don't, because they thought like, oh, she's a winner. We want the cool guy, like we want the cool girl next to us. And then if you didn't follow through, they weren't really. I think they call those fair weathered friends.
Oh,
the people,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in my years of fighting, like I've definitely seen my fair share of them. Like they're with you when you're doing well. The second that you're not, they are nowhere to be seen. They're following somebody else at that point. But that's all they are. They do. They don't do anything themselves. They just follow. So I'm like, and I don't want those people around me anyway. So
you were saying before there were some people like family, friends, etc., that were discouraging. Are you one to like cut those people out, or do you just kind of keep a boundary with them?
I try and keep a boundary because like I kind of have to look outside the box with that, because it's easy to say like, oh, you're not supportive of me, I don't want you in my life at all.
Yeah.
But they don't understand. They're not in the same world that I am. Like they don't understand fighting. They don't understand grappling. And so from their perspective, I get why they would be apprehensive about it. And so I always take that with a grain of salt. Like if they want to keep on saying over and over and over again, like you should quit, then I kind of like, listen, we don't need to talk about fighting. We don't need to talk about this. We can keep a relationship outside of this.
Yeah.
But if you constantly want to bring me down with this, then
I
I can't. I need some time away from you.
Yeah.
But as long as we like make an agreement, be like, listen, I know you don't necessarily like what I do or support me with this, but you can just be quiet on that.
Yeah.
And
then the people who love you, the people who love you will respect it. I've also learned that too, because I've had similar things like when I started becoming a musician.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's like you have to think outside the box, because not every one of those people have bad intentions by putting it down. Some of them, like you said, they're just thinking it like they actually think they're helping. Like you know what I mean? Like they think they're trying to, they love you and they're trying, but there's usually like one or two of them in there that actually want you to fail.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
That's the scary thing. It's like you don't know. And I think I feel like usually family is trying to help, because like they want you to have a safe, secure path. Like they want you to be financially stable. But I've personally found there were some friends I had to kind of let go of because I wasn't getting support from them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've definitely seen that. Like my mom, I love her. She does not understand fighting at all. She has been like the number one who's just like, you shouldn't do this anymore. Yeah. You're surrounding yourself with terrible people. And so she won't even watch my fights.
Aww.
She has come around, and so she's like, I know I don't like this. You do whatever you do. Like, but even after my last fight, she was sending me like, hey, look at this job ad. Look, you should be doing this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Mom. I would rather go fight people in a cage than work for Amazon.
Do you support yourself 100% with fighting? Like
right now, I have had jobs throughout my entire career. Yeah. I do before my last fight, just because there was a long period of time. Like I like to have some kind of income, so I was working at a restaurant doing serving and bartending, that kind of stuff.
I've done that before too.
Yeah, I'm like, it's the easiest quick money right there. Yeah. And I found a restaurant that I loved, which also bit me in the butt because the food's really good. So I'm like, oh, I can't eat that right now. I gotta make weight for something. So maybe I stick away from that one. But fighting is my full-time thing normally. Like it's been weird since COVID, because like that put like a little bit of damper on that, because there was like down times and that kind of stuff. But most of the time, fighting is the number one thing that I do. And she's like, but you need a job with health insurance, and send me things.
It's the whole thing. I know. No,
it's fine.
That's the whole thing with parents. My parents have become very supportive actually now, but in the very beginning, they were kind of like that too. But once they saw that I was like, dedicated, and I've struggled financially, so I can't say that I haven't. You know what I mean? And like I still do, to a degree, but I'm someone who very much values like authenticity, and like I don't think I could see myself working for somebody working in a job that I'm miserable in. I would much rather take the risk of failing, being broke, whatever, to know that I at least tried to do what makes me happy versus like working a secure job and always
yeah.
like wondering, oh, what if? I think that pain is a lot worse than the other one.
1000%. Yeah. I'm the exact same way. So in 2016, it was like the weirdest year of my life. Like everyone wants to talk about how terrible 2020 was. 2020 was bad. My worst year was 2016. I was working at a job. I was fighting full time and working at a job. I was working like 60 hours a week. I was a floor manager for an inside sales company.
Okay.
And, you know, working as a manager, I made great money. I never had to worry about anything. I was exhausted the whole time because I'd get up at like 5 a.m., go to the gym, go to work, go to the gym, go back to work, go there. Never slept. I worked 6 to 7 days a week. I was always in the office. Like when I wasn't there, people would call. Yeah. But I made good money, and I was supporting me and my boyfriend at the time, and we had a dog. And then me and the boyfriend broke up, and I was like, oh, that's one less thing I have to pay for. That's great. I have a 150-pound weight off my shoulders, so we're good on that one. And I was working this job, and just like the people that were there, like, you know, salespeople, they're not the best humans at all.
Yeah.
And every day I got there and I'm like, I'm just here. And I didn't like the personality types. And I remember they would call me into meetings and they're like, oh, I see you're doing well, but you could be making more money if you just like quit fighting and just focused on this. And I'm like, I'm already out. Me and my team are already out selling every other team on the floor. We're doing great. And he's like, yeah, but you could be doing better. And I was like, and I would just see the way that they would never see their families. They were unhappy every single day, and like all they did was just work and then go home and then work and then go home. Had no lives. They had nothing that they were passionate about or enjoyed or anything. And that was the year that my dad actually got sick. He had a brain tumor, and I went to Michigan, visit him, and I'd come back, and they were just like, no, I get you, your dad's sick, but we need you to focus on the office, and I need you to focus on your work. And like, even though I'm like, well, my dad's not sick, he's dying. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, he's sick. And I was like, okay, you want to downplay this because you want me to focus more. Not that my numbers or anything slipped. And that was my moment. I remember the last meeting that I had at the job, I was talking to them and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I showing up every day for this job? These people are trying to get me to work more. They're downplaying the fact that my dad's actually going to die. Like, he's not going to get better. He's going to die. I have another job that I love to do. It's a little all over the place. I only get paid when I fight. But I was like, I'm done. So I walked out of that office that day, and I never went back. Yeah. And I ended up getting an offer to be on the Ultimate Fighter TV show, and my job was still calling me. Like, they offered me a 6-figure job with double the pay with commission if I went and headed this office in San Antonio, and I was just like, no. And like, did I struggle with money after that point? Yeah, I had to like try and be resourceful. It was rough, but I don't regret it.
I think it's so funny to me that you were getting those job offers because there probably were people at the job who have no desire to fight that never got those offers. So it's kind of like funny how that worked out, where like the universe was like, do you want this? Like,
exactly. It was dangling in front. Do you really want this life? Do you really want to do this? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I don't ever want to go back. Well, after I left, they hired 2 people to do my job that I was doing, and both of them failed to do the one job I was doing. So I was like, maybe about that. But yeah, it was almost like the universe was like testing me, like, are you sure you want to go all in on fighting? And like I said, I don't regret it at all. And the number of times I've had family members or friends that would be like, are you kidding? You gave up guaranteed 6 figures to work and just fight and scrape by.
But that's the thing. It's like, so, but then do what? I mean, unless you worked it for a year and then saved all the money to fight, like maybe that would be like the only thing that
I
might
can
make
see
sense.
that. Yeah.
But like besides that, it's like, what good would that money be if it's not?
If I'm miserable.
Someone asked me this the other day. Like, so my roommate loves my cat. He's a black cat and he looks like a panther. And my roommate was like joking. He was like, I'll buy the cat off of you. And then we got into like a conversation about it. He's like, for real, like how much money would you take for your cat? Like $1 billion. And I'm like, I know that sounds crazy, but I wouldn't, because like it's my cat. It's like my baby. I love him. And it's like $1 million or $1 billion would solve a lot of my problems. But like it would be like gross dirty money. Like
Yeah.
I sold.
You'd be missing.
Sold my soul to the devil.
Absolutely.
Like,
That's exactly what that is. And
Yeah.
honestly, the people that were like, you're an idiot for not taking the money and taking that
Yeah.
job, I would see how miserable they were. They were angry every single day. They didn't have anything they looked forward to. They were the ones that like wake up in the morning like, oh, don't talk to me. I'm not a morning person. I hate this. And just like super angry. Like they'd drink their coffee and they'd be a little bit better, but they would like snap at you for anything. And then like they always found some reason to be upset and some reason to be unhappy. And there was nothing that legitimately, there was nothing that really made them happy. And I'm like, fighting makes me happy. Doing what I love to do every single day makes me happy. Is it rough? Yeah, but
yeah, that's the other end of thing too, is like to follow that kind of path. There are downsides, but again, it's a matter of like weighing out the two. Like
it's like it's the pros and cons. Like, do you want to be happy and enjoy the life that you live, or do you want to be miserable every day and be like, but I got a lot of money?
Yeah,
that's cool. What are you doing with it? Paying your bills?
Yeah.
Awesome. I pay my bills and I enjoy what I do. But people want to see things just like face value, like, oh, money for money. I'm like, that's not how I live my life. And it's funny that you said that about the cat, because the ex-boyfriend I was telling you about, we got a dog together. And so we had like a joint custody situation. He'd have him for a week, I'd have him for a week, and it worked. Like, it sucked because I didn't want anything to do with him after we broke up, but we made it work. And after I went on the Ultimate Fighter and came back, he's like, how much money would it take for me to have Atlas? That was his name.
They actually said that?
Yeah.
That is funny.
No.
I said that.
He really did.
Yeah.
He's like, how much money? He's like, and I was like, nothing. And he's like, not even if I paid you $500?
That's not even it.
No. And he's like, how about $1,000?
Like,
and I was
bidding
like,
for the dog?
no. I was like, would you give him up if I gave you, say, like $5,000? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, I'm not either. So I'll see you next week.
Who has the dog?
He passed away in June.
Aww.
But up until he passed away, we continued
to share
our thing, to share him. And it worked out. Like, I didn't want to see him, but he ended up getting married to a really nice person who must be an angel, because she made him actually a really nice person. And so like at the end, like we were good. Like, we were friendly. Yeah. They helped take care of my mom, because my mom was watching the dog for me in Utah. Yeah. And like it worked out. And like,
that's good when you get to a place where you can like communicate with exes.
Oh, yeah.
Like my ex-boyfriend and I are still very good friends, and it was the first ex that I had that like my muscle memory when we broke up, I was like, it's over, like, goodbye. And he's like, wait a second. He's like, well, like, it was kind of a breakup that happened because we just weren't compatible. Like, there was no cheating, or like, it was just like we weren't compatible.
Yeah.
And then like I kind of stopped. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. He's like, yeah, like we can still be friends. And like, it was just like, you know, I'm Italian. Yeah. I guess like I think like every breakup should be like this like soap opera or something. And he's like,
absolutely.
He's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, every time you break up with somebody, he's like, we're still friends. And like, I'm like, you're right. And like, we're still very good friends. So it's like kind of nice. Like, it's a maturing moment in life. I guess
absolutely. Because I didn't think that I would actually ever get to a point where I was friendly with him. Like, that was a really bad breakup. Like, found out that he had been cheating on me.
Oh no, that's rough.
It was a lot of different things. And like, I remember 3 days after I broke up, my friend's like, you better not get back together with him. And I was like, not even a single part of me wants to do that. I am so happy right now. I want nothing to do with him. And then for the next 5 years, I had to deal with him every other week when we switched off the dog. You had to deal with him anyways. But
it's like you had kids with him all the time.
It worked out. And just because of that. And it was like a growth period, because I was like, I wish I never had to see this person again. And I would see him when we switched off the dog. And then it got to a point where like we were actually friendly. And like my mom had a health scare, and him and his wife actually came over and like took her to the hospital and sat with her and took care of her. And so like, it's funny to see how the world works with that. But like,
is it tough to have romantic relationships as a fighter? Like, is it difficult because of traveling and stuff like that?
Yeah, it makes it really hard. And also because what we're talking about with like the focus thing, because my entire focus is always with fighting. Like, and if somebody doesn't actually add to that and add to my life, like, I have goals that I want to accomplish. And like, if you take away from that, then I can't have you in my life, because like I'm not going to be able to fight forever. And so like, while I'm fighting, I need to be focused on that.
Put your all in it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was dating this one guy like right before COVID, and he would always like, he just wanted to go out and he wanted to party and he wanted to drink.
Yeah,
and I was
like,
I can't do that. And like, I would go out with him and he would like run up this bar tab and I'd be drinking my water. And I was like, okay, like I got to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym. And he's like, oh, you're not fun. Blah, 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 blah. And it was like affecting my training because I wasn't getting sleep. And he didn't understand.
That's funny. It's almost like weird to me that he didn't understand, because even if he's not like into fighting, like it's like, well, duh, you're like an athlete. You have to, you can't drink. Like you probably don't, do you drink at all ever?
I do. Yeah. Not often. Yeah. Like when I was younger, I would, but I also could get away with it. I could go to practice and still be a little drunk and be okay. If I did that now, I would literally die.
I can't. I actually sort of miss drinking because I actually just genuinely like the flavor of beer and wine.
Nice.
I can't. I get horrible hangovers. Like I'm 35 now. When I was like in my 20s, like, oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
But like now I'll have a hangover like the night I'm drinking. Like it doesn't even come the next day. Like,
exactly.
Like I just get these like headaches and like I wake up in the middle of the night. It's like, so to me, it's just like not worth it.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, let's go drink this time. I'm like, yeah, I gotta get up in the gym, and if I'll go drink on a Saturday, on the next Monday, I know the Monday practice is gonna be a rough because like I feel it. I'm like, I know it's not in my system anymore, but I feel like I'm sweating pure tequila right now. Like I don't know what's happening. Don't drink my sweat.
It's actually true. I took training just like for lifting weights. I took training sessions with a guy once, and I mean, I don't know if this is right, but he explained to me that when you drink alcohol, your body only uses that as fuel till it's gone. So like if you have any fat or carbs in your body saves that because it wants to get rid of the alcohol first.
Oh, damn.
I mean, I don't know if it's true, but like that's what he said.
That does sound pretty accurate. So because it stops your body from being able to lose weight and all of the work that you're getting, it kind of cuts it out. And so like, yeah, I go out and have fun every once in a while, but for the most part, like I can't do that. And this guy didn't understand. At all. And he'd be like, oh, you're just like, you're obsessed with training and you're obsessed with fighting. And I was like, yeah. I remember once I took him to a hockey game, and I was like, listen, I can't be out late. I have training at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And he's like, oh, well then why would you schedule a hockey game the morning or when you have to get up early the next day? And I was like, because the NHL made the schedule. I didn't, and this is the team I wanted to go see.
Yeah, it takes it takes like a really well, you guys he's a fighter, right?
Yeah,
so that probably,
this one he gets it.
That probably works out a lot better for you guys, because I think when it comes to artists, same thing with musicians. My boyfriend's a drummer. You see the drum set. He never, if I'm like, hey, I gotta practice, like, or same thing with him. He spends most of his time in the drum set, and I'm like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like I'm
exactly.
I don't feel like neglected if he's at the drum set,
exactly.
I mean?
And that's kind of where I bet, like I said, I didn't want to have somebody in my life, and I didn't for a long time. Like my last relationship was like 3 years ago, because if you weren't going to add to it, and if you were going to be if I didn't want somebody who was going to take away from my training. But that's when you find somebody that has similar goals and wants to work and actually supports you and you support them, like it works.
It's
like,
actually a good relationship.
We're in the gym every day. We trained together this morning. We're going to train together tonight. And it's nice to be able to have a partner that actually like we're
meshes
down the same. Exactly.
Lifestyle.
He gets it. And like, I can't go to this because I have to train. I don't want to be up late because I have to get up early in the morning. And he's like, yes, so do I.
And
so I need sleep. So stop
like,
talking. And
perfect.
I was like, okay, got this. Go to bed.
No, it's hard for me. Like I'm with somebody now, but I remember when I was single, it was hard because I had a lot of those same feelings of like, I don't want anybody to fuck up my rhythm and flow.
Yep.
But I'm also like super cuddly. Like I love to like cuddle at night. I'm like, hey, can you just never be here, but just be there at night to cuddle?
Yeah.
Like, is that cool?
You are just a human pillow / like weighted blanket. I need you to come in just for this period of time and then leave and never speak to me.
Pets do a good job. So anybody out there, if you're in this situation, pets do a great job at that, because it's like they're there for love, but they don't talk to you.
That's
like,
true. My dog was great because he just was like 110 pounds. He was a great pillow. He always wanted to cuddle. In fact, if I didn't give him a part of my pillow, I'd wake up in the middle of the night because he's like, oh, you don't want to give it to me? And he would pull it out from underneath my head and have it on the end of the bed. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can just share part of it next time. How about that?
Does your cat sleep with you?
Sometimes. The very first day I got her, because she's 7 pounds now. So when I first got her, she was like 3 pounds. She was this tiny little thing. And I got so nervous because the first night I woke up, I'm like, where is she? And she was literally just like this little ball of fluff in my armpit. And I'm always just like, what if I roll over and I squish her? What's going to happen? And there's a lot of times like I'll wake up and she'll be sleeping on my chest or sleeping by my head or sleeping on my feet, and it makes me nervous because I'm like, what if I roll and kick her? I
think cats are like super. I think they're very malleable. Like I think there was what was it? I wish I had an assistant to check the facts. You could check the facts.
There we go.
I think the world record was a cat was able to survive a 26 level drop. I'm pretty sure it was like a 26 level drop was like they recorded was like, you know, cats they can, that's why they say cats have 7 lives, like the old thing.
I believe that
because they can like survive all kinds of things. So I think there is a reality that kittens, like little kittens, could get smushed, but I think 7 pounds might be like
she's good sturdy, now because if you roll over, she's like and then runs super fast, and like all I saw was fur going somewhere. I'm not even sure, but yeah, it's funny. She's actually, I had a cat growing up, and he used to sleep on my bed, and he was the normal cat. Like he'd come when he wanted to and not, and she needs attention all the time. He can attest to it, because if she doesn't get, like, she'll wake you up in the morning because like, number 1, give me attention. Number 2, feed me. And if you don't, I'm going to bite your nipple in your sleep, and that's how we're going to wake you up.
Cats are definitely better for like the busy traveler for sure. Because I think that's the thing with dogs too. I guess with your ex-boyfriend, maybe that was a positive thing about that, is if you had to travel, you could just give the dog to your ex-boyfriend.
Oh, absolutely. We were able to work that out, and yeah, it was good. And I actually feel bad. Like when I travel, I'll usually bring the cat with me. She's so small that I have a little backpack, and she's flown more than a lot of humans that I know.
How does she tolerate it?
Really good. Like I just flew. My mom watched her when I had my fight, and so she was in Utah, and I went to go pick her up.
Utah?
She was in Utah, and I'd get photos every day, and my mom was just like, my granddaughter. I was like, yes, about that. That is your granddaughter. But she flew like 5+ hours, and she'll sit in the bag. Like every once in a while I'll take her out. She'll stare out the window, and like she actually flows really well.
That's surprising, because I feel like a lot of cats get really freaked out by like the noise and all the people and everything. So you got a very
I kind of trained her. Like I actually bought her in Vegas. And so from like day 1, the very next day, like I would go to the gym and train in Vegas. So I brought a bag that has like the little bubble, and I would bring her to the gym and put her in the corner so that she was used to traveling and used to being places.
So she's just like you adjusted to it.
Oh yeah, now she's just like, give me all the attention. Don't you dare leave me alone for long periods of time, or else I'm gonna get crazy. And I'm like, oh gosh, what have I done? I created this. This is my problem.
You created this monster.
I really did. She's like 7. She's a lycoy, so she's like the werewolf cats that are like patchy fur, and her head's getting a little bit more patchy, and she's kind of like a little crackhead that she'll like look at you, and I'm just like,
Did you ever see one of those cats? I can't remember what they're called, but they're the ones that don't have the fur at all.
Oh yeah, the Sphinx.
Sphinx. Yep. They're interesting. Oh,
I love that. That's actually what I was looking at, is getting one of those, and my friend who has one of the Sphinx was like, those are really cool, but have you seen these ones? And I was like, and so he sent me the page for the breeder. And then 2 hours later, the breeder posted the photo of what ended up being my cat. And I was like, that's my cat. This is what I've been looking for. It's meant to be. And I'm like, so my next cat might be a Sphinx, but
maybe I'll, for the listeners, maybe I'll, after the podcast, I'll have her send me a photo, and I'll photo edit it.
I'll show you Sarah Connor. Yeah. So that's her name, Sarah Connor.
Aw. All right. So we're reaching the hour mark. So I just have one more question for you before we end the podcast. My last question for you, I feel like this is a simple question. It might be an annoying question, but for some reason I like it. I ask it to comedians a lot. Okay. But I'm going to ask you, why do you fight? I know it's kind of an intense question, but what do you get out of it? Why do you do it? I know you love it. Yeah. But is there any other?
Honestly, I fight because it makes me happy.
Okay.
And I know that's just kind of like the generic answer, but like I said, it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I've dedicated my life to. But if it's something that didn't genuinely make me happy, then I wouldn't do it. And I've seen a lot of my friends who fight and everything like that, and they're like, they don't want to train. They like fighting just because of like the lights and the people and everything like that. But there's a lot of people that don't genuinely like getting in that cage. But it's somewhere that I can test myself and push myself to the limits. And it's like, I genuinely feel at home when I get into that cage. There's like a feeling that I feel in my chest when I get in there. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm my happiest.
Feels right to you.
It feels right. Like, being in that cage, it's so hard to describe the feeling. Like, if you've never been in there, if you find somewhere where you're most at home and there's no other concerns, there's no other issues, just what you're doing, that's what I love. And like, and that's what I have to remember when times get tough. And like I said, with my dad, this is one of the things that it always brings me back to. Like, he had brain tumors, and when he was diagnosed, he could only say like 1 or 2 words, and he was my biggest fan, hands down. Like, nothing ever comes close. So I was in there at the hospital, and he would look at me and he would point and he would say, fight. And he would throw punches.
Aww.
And he's like, fight. But just because he knew that it was right after that Vegas fight where I was having a hard time, and like, that was him telling me that he wanted me to keep fighting.
Yeah,
like,
it's incredible. Like, that he could barely talk, but
couldn't
he
talk
still,
at all.
That's all he needed to say
Yep.
for you to get the point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so like, that's what I remember, like, because just he's the person who, he knew me better than anyone else. Like, we're very similar in personalities. I'm sorry, he's where I got my awkward humor and personality for. So if you don't like that, blame my dead dad, and don't, because that's really terrible. I hope you get shamed for that. But he knew me better than anyone, and knew that it was something that I was passionate about. Like, before every fight, he's like, okay, are you ready? Like, did you train hard? Like, I know you're going to do great. Like, make sure you do everything you can. And he would go to every single one of them. And that's what I remember too, because he knew that that's what made me the happiest. And it's something that I wanted to do and wanted to continue. And so even though he was sick, he wanted to tell me to keep doing it, because he knew I was struggling and wanted to remind me, like, this is what you should be doing. And I always think of that, like, times where I'm having like a hard day, or if like things don't go well, or, you know, lose a fight, something like that. And it's like, I'm not doing this for the glory. I'm not doing it for the money.
Mm-hmm,
you know, I'm doing it because I love doing it. If I didn't, like, even if the paychecks were great, like, the second I don't love it anymore, I'm done. But I love it.
You're right, because like some people probably end up in that position for all kinds of like a different host of reasons. It could be that they just maybe in high school showed like a natural inclination or a talent for it, so they ended up there. But maybe they don't like it. Maybe they don't like the training process, or like maybe some people, like, it is about the ego or like the attention, but they actually don't like being in there. You know what I mean? So like,
absolutely.
That's incredible that like you like it there. You know what I mean?
My favorite thing in the world. Like,
yeah,
I get all the time, they're like, oh, you've had this many fights, like, you're gonna hang up the gloves. And I'm like, when I feel like I'm not competitive and I can't do it and I don't love it, but none of those things apply right now, so we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, nice. All right, so we're going to end that on a good note right there. Again, this is Andrea. This is the Pranzata Podcast, episode number 83. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit like. I really enjoyed this conversation with DeAnna Bennett today. I will include her link to her Instagram below. So if anybody listening is from the Philly area or whatever, you can kind of check her out on Instagram. And if you want to see one of her live, performances, you can get into that. And that's it. Have a good day, guys. Bye.